program stems out of the ACP-EU dialogue on migration and development. It is a dialogue that started in 2010. It had several rounds, several meetings, all taking place mostly in Brussels. And at different times it came up with recommendations. So areas where the ACP countries and the EU member states wish to deepen cooperation. And those are visa, readmission, remittances, and later in 2015 they added trafficking in human beings and smuggling of migrants. It is a dialogue between two blocks, if we want to call them like that, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries and the European Union member states. It's based on the Cotonou Agreement and specifically on the famous Article 13, and therefore on the explicit will between these two blocks that migration becomes indeed a subject of dialogue and a subject of cooperation. As you can see, the action geographical coverage is rather large. We're talking about 79 ACP countries plus South Sudan, who is included, and the 28 member states of the EU. We have different countries, different regions, and you can imagine how different the problematics are. Still, the fact that there is a dialogue ongoing, that there have been recommendations produced on specific topics, it means there is a will to go further, to deepen the collaboration on those specific sectors. I will give you a bit of the basic on the action, our program. It is an initiative of the ACP Secretariat that very much wanted this program. And funds came from the European Union, and specifically from the 10th European Development Fund. It is a program of approximately 10 million euros. And we implement, we deliver technical assistance on a demand basis, meaning that we basically request the governments or regional organizations to come up with their needs. And we try to address them by sending expertise on those specific topics. We insist on this demand-driven aspect as we are very proud of it, because it goes a bit without saying that it strengthens ownership of the process and ownership of the outcomes in the hands of the ACP countries. The timeline, we started in July 2014, and we're going to end in February 2018, maybe longer. We are discussing about that. So it's currently a 44 months program, and once again, it's based on this decentralized structure I already talked about. The action is structured around three main components. They're self-feeding, we could say they are circular, one happens and the other can kick in. Component one, which is for us the most important, given also the time of the program, the specific point in time on the implementation cycle we are. It's the demand-driven part. That means that we deliver assistance to governments and to regional organizations that request us to do so. In the topics of the dialogue, where the dialogue has issues, recommendations. Once component one, let's say it's funded, once a country requests assistance to us, we are then we can activate component two, which is delivering grants, disbursing grants to non-state actors, so civil society and others, that want to intervene in the same sector where the government requested assistance for. And we have the third component, and one example of our activities in that area of our program is today. We are here today because we are trying to definitely create ideas, bring in the ideas that we elaborated in the course of our work, and feed possibly the dialogue with new ideas. So The task of our team, the IUM team of the ACP-EU Migration Action, is to bring back the ideas and the recommendations that we're going to work on back to Brussels. Well, here some more information about numbers. And up to today, we have received 55 requests from 5 regional organizations and from 50 ACP countries. So we have a bit outnumbered our target. It was initially 41. So we could say that looking at this data, I mean, the program is working pretty well, and we are indeed getting the attention from the governments that we wanted. So as of October 2016, we have received 19 requests on remittances. We have received 19 on trafficking in human beings and smuggling. We have received 13 on visas and 4 on readmission. You might understand reasons why. So remittances is, together with the smuggling and together with trafficking in human beings, one of the topics that, I mean, is the most, how do you say, the most requested. I mean, where governments feel they have gaps and they want to fill them with expertise. Some more data out of this. I mean, among these 55 requests, 32% came from West and Central Africa, and is followed by the Pacific and the Caribbean. And if I may say, initially the Caribbean and the Pacific were 2 regions where the European Union didn't think we would receive a lot of requests, but I'm proud to say that they caught up very well. Some more information about the request we received is that, I mean, we request 7 from the Eastern Africa, 8 from Southern Africa, 17 from Western and Central Africa, from the Caribbean 11, from Pacific 12. And definitely for Africa, for the 3 first regions you see there in Africa, I mean, the remittances is the one that is mostly requested. In the Caribbean is trafficking, together with the Pacific is indeed another 5 requests on that topic. And in Pacific we have also quite a big request from in the topic of visas. So from the action current status, it emerges that the topic of remittances is a high interest in Africa, but to a lesser extent, I would say, to the Pacific and the Caribbean, where instead trafficking in human being and smuggling are appearing as areas where more capacity, I mean, needs to be built. Here this seems like a lot of text, and it's trying to put together what and to show a bit of what we have been doing in order to address the recommendation, in order to concretize, to implement the recommendation of the dialogue. You will see that on your left you have the recommendations of the dialogue. The dialogue has divided the recommendation on 3 levels: the ones on the government and regional level, the ones on the government and the private sector level, and last block, government and people's level. So on the first block, I mean, what the dialogue was recommending, is still recommending, is that ACP government should improve their legislative and regulatory frameworks for sending and receiving countries. They should build capacity in the areas of data collection, processing data, analyzing data. And they should make an effort to make data on transfer costs available. They should improve, we should improve through this program the knowledge on South-North remittances. And what we have been doing through the action for this specific set of recommendations, well, it's a varied set of interventions. For the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States, for example, we have been asked from them to come up with a set of recommendations for a policy framework on remittances and diaspora engagement. And we have here not only a representative of the OECS, but also the expert that deliver this assistance, and they will certainly, be able to talk to you about this intervention more. From Mali and from Ghana, we have been asked to set up a study where we could evaluate the mechanism as to reduce the cost of remittances. From Togo and ECOWAS, recommendation as to improve data collection. From Guyana, and we have here the expert that took care of that intervention, a study on remittances and on the way how to reduce the cost of the transfers. And from Cabo Verde, again, a study on remittances and their impact on the population. So as you can see, we are trying to implement interventions that indeed reflect, concretize, put in place these recommendations. On another level, on more of a private sector level, the recommendations invite governments to broaden the typology of formal channels, including postal networks, and of course with a focus on the new technologies, mobile phones, for example. The recommendation, the dialogue is interested in assessing the gaps of the current systems in order to ease transfers, decrease the cost, promote access to financial services, especially when it comes to rural areas. And on the action side, what we have been requested to do, for example, from the Central Bank of Somalia, is to help them, support them to develop a mobile money licensing and regulatory framework. From Ethiopia, we have been asked to study the barriers that are affecting the diaspora, and they are impeding the diaspora from using formal remittances transfer mechanism, and to identify possible solutions. And to conclude, on a more population level, the ACP-EU dialogue on migration and development is inviting the government to promote financial literacy and to mobilize investment of migrant savings in order to contribute to the development and creation of business. And in that sense, we have several examples. For Kenya, we have been developing a booklet. We are developing a digital booklet. We are also completing studies and formulating recommendations for IGAD, Tonga, Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone on the needs and gaps in diaspora engagement policy. So we believe, to conclude, that the action is probably a drop in the ocean, but is going in the right direction. We hope we are going to continue, and we hope that the attention from the government will be still high, so that we can continue this collaboration. Thank you for your attention.